August 8, 1944. Normandy, France. 12:40 in the afternoon. 3 tanks are moving through a wheat field south of Cannes. They are not just tanks. They are the most powerful production armored vehicles on the Western Front. Each one weighs 57 tons. Each one carries a gun that can punch through the front armor of any Allied vehicle at 2,000 meters, nearly a mile and a quarter, before that Allied vehicle has identified where the fire is coming from. Each one is wrapped in 100 millimeters of face-hardened steel at the front, steel that has bounced Allied shells all summer without serious consequence. The crews inside them are experienced, decorated, and trained to a standard that the German army considers among the finest in the world. They are Tiger I tanks. And they are moving without urgency. 900 meters away, hidden in a hull-down position behind a shallow rise, a 21-year-old former farm worker from Northamptonshire, England is watching them through a gun sight. His name is Trooper Joe Ekins. His tank is a Sherman Firefly. The Germans call the standard Sherman a Tommy Cooker, a joke, a target, an inferior machine built by a nation that understood industry but not war. They have been saying it for 2 years. They have been saying it in the deserts of North Africa, in the hedgerows of Normandy, at every engagement where their 88mm guns reduced Allied Shermans to burning metal at ranges the Sherman could not match. In the next 12 minutes, Trooper Ekins will fire 3 shots. 3 Tigers will burn. And the mockery will end. To understand what happened in that wheat field, you have to understand the war that produced both of those machines. By the summer of 1944, the Second World War had been burning for 5 years. Germany had swept through Poland, France, the Low Countries, and deep into the Soviet Union on the strength of its armored doctrine, the Blitzkrieg, the coordinated strike of tanks, infantry, and air power that shattered enemy formations before they could respond. The Panzer arm of the German Wehrmacht had become the defining military instrument of the age. And at the center of Germany's armored confidence, by 1942, sat the Tiger. The Tiger I, the Panzerkampfwagen 6, entered service in the autumn of 1942 and immediately changed what armored combat meant. Its 88mm KWK-36 gun was a development of the legendary flak cannon that German crews had used in the anti-tank role in the Western Desert, killing Allied tanks at distances that seemed to violate the understood rules of the engagement. In the Tiger's turret, this weapon gave the vehicle a reach and penetrating power that no Allied tank of the period could approach. At 1,000 meters, it could defeat the front armor of every Allied tank in service. At 1,500 meters, the result was the same. The Tiger's own frontal armor, 100 millimeters of face-hardened plate, could not be defeated by the standard Allied tank guns at any combat range the Normandy battlefield produced. Its side superstructure ran to 80 millimeters. Its lower hull sides were 60 millimeters. Its rear plate was 80 millimeters. The Tiger weighed 57 tons. It moved on wide combat tracks designed to spread that weight across soft ground. It was powered by a Maybach V12 engine producing 700 horsepower. It was mechanically demanding. Its complex transmission and steering system required trained, skilled drivers, and keeping it operational in field conditions was a constant battle against breakdown and parts shortage. But in the tactical moment, when its gun was pointed at an enemy tank at combat range, none of that mattered. The Tiger was effectively unkillable from the front by anything the Allies were fielding at scale in 1944. And the crews knew it. Germany built 1,347 Tiger I tanks across the entire war. The production process was extraordinarily labor-intensive. Each vehicle required approximately 300,000 man-hours of factory work. Every Tiger that rolled off the production line at Henschel's Castle plant represented the decision not to build several Panzer IVs. Every Tiger was a precision artifact, assembled by Germany's most skilled industrial workers with the care of a craft object rather than a mass-produced weapon. On the other side of the war, the United States was producing mass-produced weapons at a scale that German planners found genuinely difficult to comprehend. The M4 Sherman medium tank entered service in 1942 and was built in quantities that make the Tiger production numbers look almost incidental. By the end of the war, 49,234 Shermans had been manufactured across American plants running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in Detroit and Cleveland and Lima and Baltimore. The production ratio was approximately 27 Shermans built for every single Tiger. American factories were producing over 2,000 Shermans every month at peak output. The Sherman was not designed to be the best tank in the world. It was designed to be the best tank that American industry could produce in the quantities the Allied war plan required. It weighed 33 tons. Its standard main gun, the 75mm M3, could not reliably penetrate Tiger frontal armor at normal Normandy combat ranges. Its own frontal armor ran between 51 and 76 mm depending on the variant. Adequate against German medium tanks, insufficient against the Tiger's 88 at most engagement distances. It was fast, mechanically reliable, easy to train crews on, and easy to repair. When a Sherman broke down in the field, spare parts were available because factories were making them by the millions. When a Sherman was knocked out, another could replace it within days. The German nickname said everything. Tommy Cooker. The Sherman burned when it was hit. Its early configuration stored ammunition in hull floor positions vulnerable to penetrating shots, and the combination of high-octane gasoline and propellant charges in proximity to the crew compartment made catastrophic fire a serious risk. British crews called it the Ronson, after the lighter. Both names captured the same observed reality. The Sherman, when hit by the right weapon at the right range, did not just stop. It killed its crew. German Tiger commanders in Normandy spoke about engaging Shermans with clinical indifference. At 2,000 meters, beyond the Sherman's reliable penetration range against Tiger frontal armor, a Tiger could sit and select its targets at leisure. The engagement was one-sided. The Tiger crew had time to aim, time to choose, time to watch the Sherman brew up and add smoke to the sky before moving to the next target. Reports from Allied formations described what military historians later called Tiger fear, a psychological state in which Allied tank crews became disproportionately cautious whenever Tigers were suspected in the area. Commanders filed after-action reports identifying Tiger kills that post-battle analysis revealed were Panzer IVs, or self-propelled guns, or sometimes no armored vehicle at all. The myth of the Tiger had grown heavier than the evidence of actual engagement, and Germany had cultivated that myth carefully. The human face of Tiger invincibility, by June 1944, was SS Hauptsturmführer Michael Wittmann. Born in Bavaria in 1914, Wittmann had fought with the Waffen-SS armor arm since the opening campaigns of the war. On the Eastern Front he had accumulated a kill record officially credited at 138 enemy tanks and 132 anti-tank guns. Figures that, even accounting for the inflation common in wartime kill claims, represented genuine and extraordinary combat skill. He had been awarded the Knight's Cross, the Oak Leaves, and the Swords. His name was held up across the German army as proof of what a Tiger commander could achieve. On June 13, 1944, 1 week after D-Day, Wittmann demonstrated it. Near the town of Villers-Bocage, a column of the British 7th Armoured Division had pushed through a gap in the Allied line and was moving in column formation along the main road, tanks and half-tracks and soft vehicles strung out without tactical spacing, confident in the speed of their advance. Wittmann, in a single Tiger, attacked the column from the side. In minutes, he destroyed or disabled a significant number of vehicles, cut the column into segments that could not maneuver, and stopped the entire advance of the British leading elements. His action became a German propaganda triumph and a source of deep concern in every Allied armored formation in Normandy. The message was unmistakable: one Tiger, one experienced crew, in the right position, could stop an Allied armored column by itself. The German commanders who witnessed this, who read the reports and studied the pattern, drew a conclusion that felt entirely reasonable on the available evidence. The Sherman was inferior. The Tiger was invincible. The Allied approach to armored warfare, mass production, numerical superiority, industrial logic, was, at the level of the individual battle, no match for German engineering and German skill. It was a conclusion that would prove fatal. Inside a Sherman tank in Normandy in the summer of 1944, the experience of being a crewman was defined by fear and proximity and noise. The fighting compartment was cramped. 5 men, commander, gunner, loader, driver, assistant driver, shared a metal box that smelled of oil and expended propellant and sweat. The engine noise was constant and overwhelming. In the Normandy summer heat, the interior temperature rose to levels that made sustained concentration difficult. And all 5 men knew, as a background fact of their daily existence, that the machine they were inside was outgunned by the Tiger at the ranges the hedgerow country forced. They drove forward anyway, through bocage lanes barely wide enough for their tracks, across open fields where any piece of cover might hide an 88, past the blackened hulks of the Shermans that had gone forward before them. They drove forward because the mission required it and because their commanders were developing, through the brutal education of the hedgerow campaign, a doctrine for fighting the Tiger that was not heroic and was not glamorous but was, in its brutal arithmetic, effective. The doctrine built itself around a fundamental truth. The Tiger's frontal armor was proof against the Sherman's gun. Its side and rear armor was not. The Tiger's side superstructure, 80 mm, could be defeated by the Sherman's 75 mm gun at approximately 750 yards under favorable conditions. Its lower hull sides at 60 mm were more vulnerable still. Getting to those angles, against a crew that would traverse its turret to face the flanking threat, was the tactical problem. The solution was coordination. Multiple threats simultaneously. A British armored troop in Normandy consisted of 4 tanks, 3 standard Shermans and 1 Sherman Firefly. The 3 standard Shermans were the fixing force. They engaged the Tiger from the front, not to kill it, but to hold its attention, to keep its turret pointed at them, to use smoke to obscure its sight lines while making the crew uncertain of what was happening around them. While the fixing tanks occupied the Tiger's gun and its slow turret traverse, the Firefly moved to the flank or rear, to the position where its 17-pounder gun could kill. The Sherman Firefly was British engineering's answer to a problem that had existed since the first Tiger appeared in North Africa. Take a standard Sherman hull. Replace the 75 mm gun with a modified 17-pounder, the QF 17-pounder, developed specifically to counter German heavy armor. The 17-pounder fired an armor-piercing round at 884 meters per second, giving it penetration figures that placed it among the most effective anti-tank guns of the war. Against Tiger I frontal armor, the 17-pounder could penetrate at approximately 1,000 meters with standard ammunition. Against Tiger side and rear armor, the engagement range extended considerably further. The Firefly was distributed through British armored regiments at 1 vehicle per 4-tank troop. Not enough to make the Tiger problem disappear, but enough to make every engagement in which a Firefly could reach the flank of a Tiger a potentially lethal transaction for the German crew. The Germans knew about the Firefly. German armored unit orders in Normandy specifically designated it as the priority kill in any Allied tank formation, destroy the Firefly first, and the remaining Shermans were manageable. Tiger crews were trained to identify the Firefly's longer barrel through their optics. Some Allied units responded by painting the Firefly's barrel with camouflage to make it appear shorter from a distance. A small deception. But in engagements decided in seconds, small deceptions had weight. The Tiger's own vulnerability was one it could not camouflage. Its turret traversed slowly, 60 seconds for a full hydraulic rotation at normal engine speed, longer under manual power alone. In open terrain, against a single threat at long range, 60 seconds was sufficient. Against 2 threats from different directions simultaneously, with smoke obscuring one and the other already at the flank, 60 seconds was the difference between survival and burning in a wheat field. The doctrine the Allied armored crews had paid for with their lives in the bocage was designed, precisely, to make 60 seconds the death sentence of every Tiger it engaged. The Allied invasion of Normandy on June 6, 1944 had landed 156,000 men on 5 beaches in a single day. Behind them, the entire industrial capacity of America and Britain was running at maximum output, Shermans coming off production lines at over 2,000 per month, spare parts and ammunition following in logistics trains that the German supply system could not match and could not interrupt. The bocage terrain of Normandy had compressed the campaign into a grinding, attritional struggle in the hedgerow country that was nothing like the sweeping armored advances the Allied planners had envisioned. Every gain was measured in fields and farmhouses. Every field cost Shermans. Every Sherman was replaced. The German armored force in Normandy was fighting on borrowed time from the first day of the invasion, and the senior German commanders understood it even if their tank crews did not fully believe it. The Tigers of Schwer SS Panzerabteilung 101 had arrived in Normandy with approximately 45 vehicles. They had been fighting continuously since June, and their losses to combat, air attack, and mechanical failure had been steady. Each lost Tiger was irreplaceable at the operational pace the campaign demanded. Germany was producing fewer than 100 Tigers per month at peak output. The Allies were replacing their Sherman losses before the smoke had cleared from the field. By early August, the Allied offensive was building toward its decisive phase. Operation Totalize, the Anglo-Canadian drive south from Contour-Falaise, was designed to cut off the German armies in Normandy before they could withdraw. It opened on the night of August 7 with nearly 800 heavy bombers striking German defensive positions in the corridor south of Caen, tearing the forward German line apart before dawn. The ground phase moved through the night in columns guided by searchlights and radio beacons, pushing through positions that the bombing had left in disarray. By the morning of August 8, the Allied advance had punched through the German forward defenses. The terrain south of Caen, broader fields, longer sight lines than the bocage, was exactly the kind of ground where a Tiger's range advantage could theoretically be brought to bear. Michael Wittmann received orders to counterattack with his Tiger elements, moving to engage the Allied armored spearhead near Saint-Agnan-de-Kremsnil. He moved with a small group of Tigers along road lines cutting through open wheat fields, advancing toward the Allied force with the confidence of a man who had made these advances before and come back every time. The 1st Northamptonshire Yeomanry had been watching them since they began to move. A squadron had established hold-down positions in the shallow rolls of the wheat fields, using tree lines and ground folds to conceal their hulls while their turrets and guns looked down the approaches the German column was using. 3 Troop was positioned approximately 900 meters from the road. Their Firefly was on the flank, barrel camouflaged, gun trained. The 3 standard Shermans were positioned to engage from multiple angles. The radio communications were tested. The plan was set. Trooper Joe Ekins was behind his sight, watching the Tigers approach, waiting for the moment. At 12:40 in the afternoon, he fired his first shot. The 17-pounder round crossed 900 meters in just over a second. It struck the leading Tiger on the side armor of the upper hull superstructure, 80 millimeters of armor that the 17-pounder penetrated without difficulty at this range. The Tiger stopped. Smoke rose from its engine deck. The hatches opened as the crew tried to escape before the ammunition cooked off. It was burning within moments. Ekins traversed his gun to the second Tiger. The German vehicle had halted. Its turret had begun to move, the slow hydraulic traverse rotating toward the source of fire. In the 60 seconds that rotation required, Ekins had reloaded and laid his gun. He fired. The round struck the second Tiger on the flank. It penetrated. The second Tiger caught fire. The 3 standard Shermans of 3 Troop were firing now. 75mm rounds and smoke filling the air around the German position, creating simultaneous threats from multiple directions that the surviving German crews could not process with a turret that took a minute to rotate. The coordinated ambush the Allied doctrine had been designed to deliver was working exactly as intended. Ekins traversed his gun again. He found his third target. A Tiger attempting to maneuver, turning its hull toward the most immediate threat, its turret rotation not yet complete. He fired for the third time. The third Tiger burned. 3 shots. 3 Tigers. 12 minutes. Among the Tiger tanks destroyed in the Saint-Agnan-de-Kremsnil engagement on August 8 was Tiger 007, Michael Wittmann's vehicle. The precise attribution of the killing shot has been debated by historians since the war ended, with multiple claims from different Allied units and the possibility of other factors considered. The physical evidence, penetration marks on the recovered hull fragments, the position of the wreck, and the 1st Northamptonshire Yeomanry's after-action records, points most strongly to a 17-pounder round from a Firefly in the same engagement that killed 3 confirmed Tigers. Wittmann's body was buried in a mass grave near the village, identified by dental records in 1983, and reinterred in the German military cemetery at Lacan. Germany's greatest Tiger ace, the man whose action at Villers-Bocage had become the defining image of Tiger invincibility, killed in a wheat field by a machine his own side called a joke. The aftermath was not dramatic in the way that propaganda prefers. The fighting in Normandy continued for 2 more weeks with the same grinding intensity. But the accounting was being written in numbers that admitted no argument. The Schwer SS Panzerabteilung 101 had arrived in Normandy with 45 Tigers. By the end of August, through combat, air attack, mechanical failure, and the consequences of the Falaise encirclement, it had effectively ceased to exist as a fighting force. The same pattern repeated across the other heavy Tiger battalions committed to the campaign. The Schwer SS Panzerabteilung 102 lost its operational strength progressively through July and August. The Schwer SS Panzerabteilung 103 was similarly consumed. The total Tiger force Germany had committed to the defense of Normandy was gone by the time the Falaise pocket closed on August 20, 1944. In the Falaise pocket itself, an estimated 50,000 German soldiers were taken prisoner. The armored equipment left behind, Tigers, Panthers, Panzer IVs, self-propelled guns, half-tracks, was abandoned across a landscape that General Eisenhower, visiting after the battle, described as one of the most concentrated scenes of destruction he had witnessed in the entire war. The machines that had been built at the cost of 300,000 man-hours each, that had been held up as the proof of German engineering's ability to overcome Allied numbers, sat burned and broken in Norman fields, their hulls penetrated by the weapons of the tanks they had mocked. The Sherman units that had fought from D-Day to Falaise were a changed force by the time the pursuit across France began. Their losses had been real, hundreds of vehicles destroyed in the Bocage, hundreds of crews killed. The Tommy Cooker nickname had not been earned without justification, but every Sherman lost had been replaced. The German armored force had no such reserve. The Battle of Aricourt in September 1944 confirmed the lesson Normandy had written. When the U.S. 4th Armored Division's Sherman-equipped units met a German panzer counterattack built around Panther tanks, mechanically superior to the Sherman in both armor and gun, the Americans lost approximately 25 vehicles over the entire multi-day battle. The Germans lost around 100. Terrain, training, doctrine, and fighting quality overcame the raw mechanical comparison. The pattern held. Germany had built 1,347 Tigers. America had built 49,234 Shermans. The ratio, 27-1, meant that no individual Tiger engagement, however successful, could change the outcome. The Tiger could win every frontal confrontation it was given. It could not win the war. Because the war was not decided in the frontal confrontation. It was decided in the fields between the confrontations, in the factories, in the logistics trains, in the maintenance depots, in the training centers, in the industrial capacity to absorb losses and continue moving forward. The wheat fields near Saint-Agnan-de-Cramesnil look like farming country now. The roads are paved. The tree lines have grown back. The village is quiet in the way that French villages are quiet, and there is nothing visible on the surface of the land that marks what happened there on an August afternoon 80 years ago. But the question that engagement posed has not aged. What makes a weapon powerful? The Tiger I was, by the narrow measure of machine against machine, gun against armor at combat range, genuinely better than the Sherman. That is an honest statement. The German contempt was not manufactured from nothing. At 2,000 meters on open ground, in a direct frontal engagement at the ranges the Tiger's doctrine preferred, the Sherman could not win. The mockery had a foundation in verifiable technical fact. But war is not fought at 2,000 meters on open ground in a direct frontal engagement. War is fought in wheat fields with shallow rises and tree lines and a 21-year-old farm worker with a 17-pounder waiting 900 meters to the flank. War is fought with doctrine and coordination and the patient building of an ambush by crews who understood that their machine was not the best machine but who understood precisely how to use it and where to put it and when to fire. The Sherman succeeded because it was designed for a system. A system that included factories running day and night, logistics chains that never ran dry, maintenance crews who could have a knocked-out vehicle back in service within a week, training manuals that told a farm worker from Northamptonshire exactly how far he needed to be from a Tiger's side to guarantee a kill with a 17-pounder. The Tiger was a masterpiece. The Sherman was an argument. The argument was, you cannot beat an industrial nation in a war of attrition by building masterpieces one at a time. Trooper Joe Ekins proved that argument 3 times in 12 minutes. The German commanders who mocked the Sherman had looked at the machine. They had measured its gun against their gun, its armor against their armor, and found it wanting. They were correct, on those measurements. What they had not measured was everything around the machine, the doctrine, the numbers, the industry, the system. They had not accounted for the farm worker in the wheat field with the longer barrel and the patience to wait for the angle. In war, that is almost always the thing that kills you. Not the enemy you can see and measure and feel contempt for, but everything else around him that you decided not to account for. The Sherman was never just a tank. It was everything behind the tank. And on August 8, 1944, in a field of burning wheat south of Cannes, that everything was enough.